Welcome to another edition of Unplugged. Great to be back again, reflecting on a really significant win. I know the GWS Giants didn't necessarily set the world on fire in 2020, but the expectation was, as a pretty talented group, that they would bounce back again. And we entered the game with 9 players unavailable, at least 7 of them within our best 22. Really difficult conditions in the wet in Sydney. We trailed early. We trailed by 12 points halfway through the last quarter and had to really pull out all stops. I thought it was a fine victory, probably on a par with the win over Port Adelaide last season. As good as Port Adelaide were, and the fact that they were the top side all year, I think it was a really important win on the road that hopefully we can now consolidate upon. 13-8-86 to 11-12-78. Tim Membry with 3 crucial goals. Seb Ross, not a noted goal scorer. He kicked a couple of really crucial ones. Jack Higgins, a couple of goals in his first game for the club. And Jack Loewe with a couple of goals, including one of the goals of the year midway through the final term to start the momentum for us once again. But we get to 1-0. Hopefully we slowly start to work players back. Zach Jones and Max King likely to return, you would think, this week. Zach Jones played in the VFL or in a practice match and did very, very nicely. And Max King appears to have ticked all relevant boxes in his concussion recovery. But, H, that was a pretty significant win. I mean, it remains to be seen how good GWS are, but I thought we copped the rough end of the pineapple. I thought we copped a fair bit of bad luck, and all in the lead-up was against us, but we found a way to produce a really important win.
Yeah, we seemed to battle a number of elements on the weekend, it seemed, but to come away with a win that we did in that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was sitting there after the game sort of thinking, the last time we've sort of gone into a game like that where we're missing almost half a team and we're relying on our second string players, I'm thinking back to 2009, going down to Tassie against Hawthorn with a whole bunch of players that haven't had a game for a long time because they've been sitting on the sideline playing VFL or, it's VFL back in those days, and coming out with a gutsy win because you've got these players that they're going in going, hang on, we've got a bunch of players waiting behind us who are automatic ins. I want to keep my spot.
Yeah, that's right.
So these players have stepped up and gone, hey, watch us. We want our spot. We're going to fight for a spot. And that can be only the best thing for the team. The battling for that position is going to make us a great team.
Trivia question for you. H, who played his only game for St Kilda that day?
The name's going to jump.
He did play for another club.
Yeah, I can't think of at the moment, to be honest.
Clue was he was Irish.
Irish? No,
Colm
Begley.
Colm Begley. Played his only game. That's the voice of Nick, who's also with us, and really, really significant. I think in the scheme of what we're trying to do long term to be able to get a character booster like that.
Absolutely, I think you look back and in previous years we lose that game.
Oh yeah,
I think we started slow and you end up wrestling our way back into the game. You take the lead and you lead for most of the game and then give up the lead in the last quarter. Historically, St Kilda loses those games, and for that team, that squad to show the fight that they did against everything, against the elements, against another pretty decent squad, and some would say against a few other personalities on the field as well, was really impressive, and I think it really showed the strength of Brett Ratton and what his coaching team have done with our squad and mentally what they've done, but also the way that we played football in those conditions. We still look to move the ball quickly. We look to kick long to a target, and we look to make things happen and be playmakers. In that sort of weather, you kind of expect to get people behind the ball, around the ball, and make it a real scrap. And we look to move it quickly. We look to play real football, and that was really impressive. It was really positive, I think, for the way that we should expect to play football for the rest of the season. So I was very impressed with that performance.
Yeah, it was that later stages of the second quarter where it was a frustrating game where we'd take control and then concede a goal on half-time completely against the flow. Then we conceded one just before three-quarter time. And even at the end, when we kicked all those goals in a row, and then Lachie Keefe, who's probably never kicked a goal in his life, kicks a set shot from 55 metres out near the boundary, and you're sitting there thinking, geez, are they just going to pip us because it's one of those days where those things happen? And probably a little bit frustrating that the only umpiring discussion out of the game was the only bad decision that went our way, and 43 went the other way. But and it wasn't even that. It was a weird one, that the holding the ball bump, because watching it live, obviously on a monitor, it looked like he got a bit of a jumper. That's holding the ball. It looked pretty clear cut the first time you watch it, and it's only when they showed a replay that you're like, he's actually bumped him. He hasn't tackled him. But
and there is another slow motion angle as well.
Yeah.
It looks like he's got two arms around him. So.
Yeah, exactly. And either way, I mean, technically it's incorrect disposal, even without a tackle. But look, it's probably not a free kick, but it's not the worst decision I've ever seen. That's for sure.
And
certainly not. I mean, Jack Steele's tackle was worse than that as a decision.
And you've got to remember that goal didn't put us in front either. It sealed the lead.
Exactly. And
we even if we hadn't kicked that goal, we were still in front. And,
And let's paint a picture. I mean, the ball's 40 metres out from our goal. We're 2 points in front. Callum Ward's on the ground, and we had 3 loose players.
Yeah, I think it spilled straight to Gresham.
So we're probably kicking a goal. And even if we're not, and it's a stop play, the chances in the wet of them going coast to coast in 40 seconds and kicking a goal anyway were slim.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, it pretty much sealed it. I mean, they had enough time when the ball goes back to the centre. That gives them a better time because they go back to the 6-6-6.
Exactly.
I mean, they can kick a goal quickly from that.
Yeah.
But from where they were, it's a long way back.
Exactly.
As I think I was discussing before the game last week. It's two kicks out of the back line to get to the middle in those sort of conditions. And then you've got to hit a target, and you've got to be able to hit a target that's got good hands in the wet. So it's there's a lot to still play out at that point. But, I mean, there's so many decisions. You go back, and you pinpoint the last one in the last minute, but many other decisions make impacts earlier in the game. I mean, Higgins should probably have a free kick within the first 3 minutes in front of goal, where he got dragged to the ground.
It's not just the decisions that are paid; it's the ones that are not paid as well.
Exactly.
And there were a lot of those that didn't go our way. I think especially through the first half of the game. I thought.
Yeah, ones that get paid one way and then they get paid the other way only moments later. You're thinking, why is that one paid and that one not?
That's the only thing that annoys me, is that some of the commentary around it saying it was the game-deciding free kick. Like the Giants, it was nearly impossible for GWS to win the game. Nearly impossible.
Yeah.
So even without that, but obviously great to get the result. Tom Highmore had nearly 20 possessions on debut. He made one mistake, but that's to be forgiven, where he sort of handballed it back into the corridor. But apart from that, he was pretty good. Hunter, I thought, was solid without being spectacular. And the worry is obviously Max gone this week, but he was beaten by Flynn in the ruck for GWS. And I thought Sean McKernan struggled throughout, but his last 10 minutes was really, really good in the ruck.
Best in that last quarter, I thought.
Really good in the ruck.
Just getting to the contest, that was probably his biggest point of difference in those last minutes, as we're saying. He seemed to be running under it early on. I saw the ball carried over his head a number of times early on, and I was like, he's not judging it, or I don't know if it was going over his head from the wind or something or other. It sounded like it was a little bit swirly up there. But eventually got to the right spots, and he was either punching the ball or making the contest and getting it to ground. He eventually found that he was getting the right positions.
The ruck contest this week against the D's is going to be really interesting because Hunter, I think, competed well.
Yeah.
And especially in the ruck contest, I think he probably broke even. But it was around the ground that Flynn got on top of him. And in terms of some contested marks, big moments, contested marks, that Flynn really stood up and showed his strength in those moments. And Hunter couldn't quite go with him around the ground. So Gawn, who's clearly one of the league's premier around the ground rucks in terms of having an impact, taking those marks, kicking goals, running forward and going both ways. It's going to be really interesting to see what Rats and the team does with that ruck spot based on McKernan's last quarter as well. Do you kind of tank the bounce, tank the ruck contest and try and maybe play an extra mid, or you bring King in and get McKernan to run around the ground with
potentially.
Gawn. I don't know, but it's it could be one of those defining matchups.
It could be, and I remember back in the mid-90s, Stan Ells tagging Jim Steins with Robert Harvey. So whether you get a running player who's a bit more mobile and tall, I don't know who that could conceivably be. Battle or something.
Not bad.
Josh Battle, maybe.
He's
not bad. So something like that, because that's one of our major hurdles to overcome. We feel like we could have them covered in a lot of areas. It's just whether that becomes a problem for us. So I thought Bytel was pretty solid at 10 or 11 tackles.
Yeah, well,
That's 6
13
at
or
quarter time.
6
Yeah.
a quarter time and finished
Yeah.
with 10. So ended up still being our leading tackler. I don't know whether young exuberance got him going in the first quarter and then sort of
Buggered after that.
Yeah, it just had it was gone by quarter time or something. But
Wouldn't have been too many times in the last
No.
couple of years that someone out-tackled Jack Steele, though.
No,
for us.
and what was pleasing also was that Jack Steele had 15 in the first half, only 4 in the second, and none in the last quarter, and we were able to win. Brad Hill was solid. He kicked obviously a brilliant goal in the second quarter. Conditions don't necessarily suit that type of player, but he was all right. How did you play your votes?
Yeah, really interesting. I think Tim Membry was clearly
Yeah,
our best. You know, he had 21 and 3. I think it
most
was.
possessions he's ever had in a game. Yeah,
Yeah, and clearly the most influential player. I mean, if not just forward, but the most influential player on the ground.
Yeah.
I gave 2 to Jade Gresham. I think for impact again. You know, someone that we dearly missed in the second half of last season, and we spoke about him last week about his potential impact. Now that he's got a lot of good players around him, I thought he was very good and a bit of an X factor for us in the middle. And the one vote I found really difficult because there are a lot of guys, and it came down to Hunter Clark and Jack Sinclair, and I gave it to Hunter Clark just because in those conditions he looked like he was playing with a dry ball, and just his ability to move out of congestion in general, but under those conditions was incredible.
H.
Well, I'll swing it round because we did have a few complaints last year about the order we're doing that in.
Sorry about that. Forgot about that.
I'm the one that usually cocks that up.
But as you're saying, trying to fit the 3 in this week was there's 6, 7, 8 that could quite easily get votes here. I gave the 1 to Billings, 30 touches and a goal on a wet day. Where would he go? 86% disposals as well. So it was reasonably clean when you look at it. So he used the ball very well. It just seemed to find space really easily as well. So he was sort of opening us up and getting us moving when the ball sort of got a bit stuck somewhere, and it'd come out and he'd find a space and get us moving again. 2 to Gresham. Obviously, yeah, great game. Used the ball well. Got us out of the middle where we needed to. I mean, we won the clearances. I think he had 5 clearances. I think they were all centre clearances. I don't remember him getting one around the ground, but they're all in the middle, so they got us moving.
He was at a lot of centre bounce.
Yeah. So as I was saying last week, the first thing we had to do was get that first use out of the centre, knowing what the weather was going to be like. So he got us the ones he could. And yeah, Tim Membry, best on, 3 goals. We weren't expecting he's not exactly a tall forward, or a big forward. He's that sort of mid-sized forward, really. But he played as our key forward on the weekend, and yeah, to pick up the 3 goals and lead the way up there. Great game. I looked into I think it was the inside 50s. He had 7 of his own as well. So if he wasn't there, he was getting the ball in for us. So great game and well-deserved 3 votes.
Yeah, I gave basically the same votes as H. I think for Membry, first quarter, obviously the only quarter where he didn't hit the scoreboard. He had multiple inside 50s in that term, and we were kicking against the breeze to sort of give us some territory and hold us up. The goal he kicked before half-time was important. Ripper goal in the third quarter from about 50 out on the run into the wind. I remember thinking, because we chipped it over the top, we had players everywhere. So I remember thinking on the TV, what's he having a shot for? He's got players everywhere.
Yeah, he had 2 blokes on their own running towards
Yeah, that's
goal.
right. But then he just drilled it, and I'm like, well, as long as you kick it, that's all right. But it was a beautiful kick. But yeah, he burnt a few blokes.
Both players, you just saw the arms go down and go, oh no.
But as long as you kick it, that's fine. Players can do that if they back themselves, and as long as they hit it. And then the contested mark, which statistically was the only contested mark we took for the game. We got beaten 12-1 in contested marks. The only contested mark we were credited with was the one that Membry took with about 5 minutes to go to kick our 12th goal to put us up by 7. I reckon he was a bit unlucky because he took one in defence a few minutes later, which wasn't deemed contested, which almost was. So, but then, yeah, that topped it off by going down the other end and doing it there as well. 2 votes to Gresham. His polish, 21 of his possessions were kicks as well, but his polish is something we really missed. He's another guy that would have been so important in that final against Richmond last year. You sort of can't help but think about what Ryder and Carlisle and Long and Gresham does to that game potentially. And Jack Billings, 30 possessions. Starts seasons very well. If you look at Billings' record, his early rounds of seasons are always really, really good. So hopefully he can go on with it. Honourable mentions to a couple of others. Seb Ross gets an honourable mention, but one that probably won't get mentioned by too many, who I thought his first game in at least 18 months, possibly longer than that, I thought Jimmy Webster played really well. A couple of times where he literally just put his body in the way, stopped balls, turned it around, controlled it. His first kick was a shocker. It went off the side of his foot.
Well,
but,
I don't know if he hit the side of his foot.
Yeah, he almost missed.
Dribbled off his little toe, I think.
Yeah, but I think he did everything else quite well, and I thought that he got a real big tick for his performance, Jimmy Webster, coming back into the side. He gets an honourable.
What did you guys think of Jack Sinclair off halfback?
He's really good. I love him, yeah.
Brilliant. I think he's found a position there. He's a great user of the ball.
Yeah.
He is,
and he seems to read the play really well. He's finding himself getting to positions and getting that cut-out ball to send it back our way, and just finding space that's hasn't necessarily been there. I think he's one that's going to take advantage of this on the mark rule too.
Yeah.
Running past a player and then picking off a kick somewhere and hitting at another target, and I think those smaller backs are really going to have a lot more impact this year with that, and with a good ball user like him, we've got to keep using that.
And
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, well, the goal Seb Ross kicked to put us in front in the last quarter was exactly that, where he exploited the fact that the man on the mark couldn't move and ran around and drilled it by improving the distance.
Yeah, the other one that I thought was a huge tick for us, and you mentioned, was Jack Billings. And I think we know that he's a really good ball user. We know how dangerous he can be, especially forward of centre. But I think one knock on him has been his toughness around the ball and in the contest. And I think this is a huge year for Jack Billings in the course of his career. But the way that he attacked the ball, he attacked the man, he put his head over it, and really showed that he can be a real midfielder, not just a half forward flanker or a forward pocket and one of those flighty kind of light forwards. But he can make a real impact in the middle of the ground and really hit the contest hard.
And we want to talk about Jack Loney's goal.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, where did that come from?
Yeah, that's a freakish goal. Yeah, I mean, and
nominated for goal of the year.
And we needed it. Yeah, we needed it so badly at the time. Something out of nothing, and that swung the game back our way.
And talking to swing, that someone behind us said it swung like
Mick
Malloy's on Crackerjack. So,
and there's been questions about how Jack Loney fits into the side with Butler and Higgins and Billings and a whole lot of these kind of smaller guys. But he showed that he fits. They can make it work. So.
The other two, I thought, Hill's goal was great, but Higgins' mark in the third quarter between two players was a terrific grab.
I've got to give credit to that kick.
Yeah.
That kick.
I think that was Sinclair, actually.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. Slightly either way, he doesn't get that ball.
No.
It was the pinpoint between the two players.
It was amazing that the commentary was raving about the mark. And I remember saying in our little group and on Twitter,
that kick
was incredible.
So that was it's a bit of a summary of everything that we saw. We'll preview the match against Melbourne very, very shortly, but we'll focus first of all on the occasion and what it all means. It's been a long time coming. Obviously, September 2019 was when Spud passed away. Danny Frawley, of course, 240 games with the Saints, captain, best and fairest winner as well. Second longest serving captain in the club's history behind Nick Riewoldt, who only took that mantle off him very late in Nick's captaincy tenure, around about 2016-ish that he would have got that. But we're going to catch up with both Chelsea Frawley, one of Spud's three daughters, and also former long-time teammate, another captain of the club, and one of Spud's great mates in Stewart Loewe.
Danny's legacy transcends the football field. He was more than just a footballer, more than an entertainer. He was a mental health warrior and the ultimate mate to those who knew him. He was just so committed to destigmatising mental ill health. So Spud's game is our chance to not only celebrate the great man's legacy, to promote a national conversation that can help to early interventions and tackle the prevalence of mental ill health within our community.
Of course, we've spoken a lot about it, but it is Spud's game this week. It's been a little while in the making. Of course, 2020 ruined the chances for a lot of those sort of tribute and special occasion matches that we would normally have. Maddie's match, and certainly St Kilda had ambitions for doing this around the West Coast Eagles match at the start of last season. But it is appropriate in St Kilda's return to Marvel Stadium in front of crowds, and with an increase of crowds that was announced this week up to around 43,000, that we do continue to celebrate it. And Chelsea, one of three daughters, of course, for Danny and Anita, and it is terrific to have you with us, Chelsea. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, boys. It's exciting to be able to get on and talk about the game this weekend. That I think, Victorians and Australians have been starved from being able to go to their favourite teams to watch them on the weekend for 18 months. So it's pretty big weekend ahead.
Obviously, as St Kilda fans, obviously a really big moment, a really big event for us as fans. But what does it mean to you as the Frawley family?
I think it's incredibly special to be able to hold on to something that's so positive in his mental health legacy. It kind of makes, I don't want to say, it's just like makes it a lot more of a positive situation after the tragedy that did happen. Being able to hold on to that legacy is kind of going to be our driving force it's my passion now, and I assume it's the same with the rest of my family, to make sure that this doesn't happen to other families.
We've seen a number of names who have been associated with spreading the word of this great cause. Who are some of the current day former players who have jumped in, given their time, and just helped to try and help get the word out of what this cause is trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you can see behind me, Robert Harvey and Stewart Loewe have really jumped on board with this Time2Talk campaign. They're two of our major ambassadors. They've also, Stewie has been a great voice for the campaign, because he has been able to be vulnerable and share his story, his side of the story of what happened with Dad, because he was one of his best friends. Also, we've had Gary Lyon join the campaign as well, and Jason Dunstall. And we are actually getting Plugger down to the game on Saturday. So that's a massive tribute to Dad, that he can galvanise Plugger to get down here to support the cause.
Obviously, you know or knew Danny better than most of us. I was lucky enough to work with him quite a bit over the journey, and you reflect on moments like this, and when we see 43,000 people there on Saturday night, we see all of these past players, his great mate Plugger, who seldom comes out for events like this, to be drawn out for something so significant. How do you imagine he would have felt or would feel if he could see it? And, he often spoke about head wobble and things like that. Just for him to look at it and go, I'm sure he'd be very, very proud of something he built, not just in regards to the fact that as St Kilda people, we loved him, but the message that is so important to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. After having conversations with Matt Finnis, who's the CEO here, he mentioned that Dad bugged him all the time as to why he didn't have a name on the door, or why he didn't make the team of the century. And I think that him up there, seeing that he's going to have an entire centre named after him in conjunction with a match, I think he would be just chuffed. And I think it lends itself, it's so special that it's in his legacy and not just his name. I think that is the proudest part.
Chelsea, Danny was always a big mental health advocate, especially in the latter part of his life and in his media career. Do you remember him always being like that at home, kind of personally, in that sort of environment?
Yeah, I think absolutely. From a young age, Dad was always pretty open about how he felt and how he was feeling. I think that was probably more evident in the family dynamic. He wanted us to grow up being able to share our feelings, and was always in touch with what's going on, what's happening, why are you sad, that type of thing. But I think that as the mental health stigma was reduced in the later part of his life, he felt more comfortable sharing that publicly.
So most supporters have their memories of Danny the player. Obviously, being your dad, do you have memories of Danny the footballer? And we've also seen the photo of yourself running out onto the ground with him in his last game. Do you have any memories of that day?
Yeah, I it's hard for me to remember. I think I was 4 years old. I do have memories of just being surrounded by the football club and what a great family it was back then, and how close everyone was. Yeah, I don't have too many memories, but I think it has definitely. It's interesting when people say this, because I always saw Dad as Dad, and so whenever anyone refers to him as Danny Frawley, it kind of doesn't really connect with me as well, just because I don't see him as this larger than life figure that everyone else does. I see him as the dad. So I think that growing up, when everyone was like, "Oh, Spud's your dad, Danny Frawley's your dad," it didn't really connect with me, because I only just knew him as Dad, the guy at home who would drive me to rowing, be there for me when I come home to have a conversation. I'd watch the footy with him. When he was coach, I would watch all the tapes with him as well. So yeah, I think that, yeah, they're the memories I have.
One thing that was a legacy of his, he went on to coach Richmond, and like most coaches, you eventually lose your job. It's just part and parcel of what happens. But he became a strong advocate in that space for the Coaches Association, looking after the welfare of coaches that went through that very thing. And that probably says a lot about it as well, that for all of the experiences he had throughout his career and playing and coaching, that he often used those to help others. And I think that coaching stint was really evident of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of Richmond, he was pretty defeated mentally. I think that period was not something that we ever want to look back on and think of as a good time. The early days of Richmond were great when he was winning, but at the end it was a little bit, it wasn't that great. But I completely agree. I think that he saw the pressure that comes with being a senior coach, and also the media attention that does come with being a senior coach, and how important it was to help educate the future senior coaches on how to deal with the pressure that comes along with that.
Chelsea, last one from me, but is there one thing that you want to say to the St Kilda community, to the AFL community, that, you know, what's it like being Spud's daughter, and is there something that you'd love kind of the general community to know about him as a person?
That's a really good question. He was such an open and honest person that I think that he does connect with the community on such a deep level. And that's kind of why his death kind of had a ripple effect through the entire, not necessarily St Kilda community, but the whole AFL community. I mean, he was just what you see is what you get, I think, is the most important thing. And I think he wore his heart on his sleeve, and he wasn't scared to have the hard conversations, and he wasn't scared to be vulnerable. And I think that message is something that I hope is his lasting legacy, that people aren't scared to be vulnerable and having hard conversations. I think that he did some incredible work in that space, and I think that should be his lasting legacy.
Chelsea, thank you very much. Good luck for the weekend, and hopefully long may this continue. It's a really, really important message. It's a really important occasion, and great to get the insights of the family. On behalf of us as a St Kilda podcast, obviously we'll always have a special place in our heart for Danny and the contribution he made, not just to the footy club, but with this really important message going forward. So thank you very much.
And if any of the supporters want to get involved, they can head to movember.com/Spud and donate. All those funds will go towards the Danny Frawley Centre mental health programs, including Movember's ahead of the game.
And we'll share those out as part of our links as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, team.
Well, it is terrific. We were lucky enough last season as one of our featured chats just prior to the COVID lockdown actually to catch up with one of the greats of the football club, a former All-Australian, a best and fairest winner, a club captain, 300 gamer and the best part of 600 goals with the club, but also a great mate of Danny Frawley and part of the crew of past players, including Robert Harvey and Jason Dunstall and Gary Lyon and a few others that have put their thoughts and their efforts behind Spud's game this weekend as St Kilda takes on Melbourne. I speak of buckets, Stewart Loewe. And Stewie, thanks very much for jumping back on with us.
No, my pleasure, Darren. If a ball hits me or I seem a tiny little bit distracted, I'm walking around the middle of the oval down at Halbury for the old boys training session, which the great man coach for the girls, and I can see young Chelsea running out with the girls, just starting their training run as well. So it's quite fitting, mate, that we have a chat
And it's
right about now.
Also quite fitting. We had Chelsea on about 3 minutes ago as well, just prior to her running out.
There you go.
As long as you don't get hit by a golf ball like Max King, we'd be just about set. But I guess the importance of this, I think we all were full of praise and respect for the way you spoke at the funeral, but also at the best and fairest, where a couple of us were lucky to attend. We know how close you were to Danny, but how important this event is for you and for him.
Yeah, look, it's something that's it's really close to my heart. He's one of my best mates. I've been just super close to the family all the way through. He was more than just my captain. We developed just a great friendship with our families as well. And look, I've been touched with mental illness within my family, and I lost my sister 18 months ago in similar circumstances. So it's just something that I'm really proud to jump on board with, and just try to spread the message and try to get something good out of what's really been a pretty ordinary sort of 18 months, 2 years since all this stuff's happened. So. Great initiative. Super what Chelsea and Anita and Danielle and obviously Kelly's been stuck overseas, but the girls have been absolutely fantastic, as has the footy club and all the broader football community. So if we can just make this a bit of a football sort of statement on Saturday night and start something that just starts the conversation about mental illness and I suppose just destigmatises it and makes it a little bit easier for people to feel comfortable about A, coming out and saying, look, I need help, and B, for those people who are actually struggling with somebody close to them and dear to them, to sort of know and give them another opportunity to actually have some dialogue with some people that might be able to help.
Now, you would describe Danny as your former teammate, your former captain, best mate, family friend, everything. What is the lasting impact he has had on your life? How would you best describe him as the person, Danny?
Look, there's just so many stories, and we've all seen him, play the fool and be the comedian on telly, which he just was extremely quick-witted and just had a wicked sense of humour. But he was just amazingly selfless. And I just recall the day of my 300th game, Malcolm Blight was coaching. We were going through a pretty horrid sort of, start to the season. It might have been about round 8 or something. And ironically, we were playing at, the then Etihad Stadium, Marvel Stadium. And Danny was, of course, the coach of the Tigers at the time. And a few of the boys, I think Harves rang him and said, listen, would you mind coming in and saying a few words to Loewe? And he came in, coaching an opposition side into, within the confines of the room, and he addressed the entire team literally 5 minutes before he ran out. I don't think it's ever been done, and it probably will never be done again, but he just wanted it to happen, and it was great, and we notched up one of our first wins for the year, and it was just one of those lasting memories that I'll just never forget. And he just did that time and time again to lots of people out there, probably to the detriment of himself. He'd always just put himself second and others first. So for me, we had a lot of laughs and had some great trips away, but his work ethic, his ability to just want to throw his arms around people and say, come follow me, or do you need a hand, or do you need a chat? That's what's going to forever be in my heart and how I'll remember him.
Stewie, thanks for coming on the show again. Obviously, it's great to have you on a second time, obviously to talk about such an important and touching subject. But we spoke to Chelsea Frawley, as Darren said earlier, and one of the things that we asked was Spud was always very open and honest, especially in that kind of later period of his life. Do you remember him being that same kind of guy when he was a player, when he was that hard nut fullback? Was he always kind of that softy on the inside and would lay his heart out on the line over a coffee on a Sunday morning?
Yes, yeah, he was. There's no doubt there was stuff going on for a long time that he didn't let us all know. We suspected, but I think people with that illness and when they're suffering from it learn to put band-aids over things and learn to cover them up. But I would have said earlier, that he always wore his heart on his sleeve. He knew exactly how he felt at the time. He was always emotional, as tough as he was. He wore his heart on his sleeve. But sometimes I think there's just that inability to really open up and try to mask it, doing other things. And he did open up, but it was obviously a little bit too late, and we couldn't sort of help him get out of that sort of deep, dark spot he got into. Over the years we shared many a coffee and a quiet beer, and discussed the what ifs about our footy, and we're always both very proud of what we were able to get out of ourselves. Just deep down, I think there was just a lot of demons there that he just couldn't get rid of, and ultimately he lost that battle.
We'll flick our last lap around the table because I know you've got a whistle in your hand, probably ready to coach. But I guess, is that the biggest takeaway from you through all of that you would have learned over the journey? And that's the message of the day. On one hand, that it's don't be afraid to talk about anything. There is always someone there that's prepared to listen. Those attitudes of toughen up and all of that sort of stuff don't exist anymore. And I guess the second part is, it takes a bit to get your old mate Plugger back to St Kilda and back in footy. We know he sort of lives the quiet life, but that probably sums up, Danny, a bit that he's been able to draw Plugger out for this week.
Yeah, look, they were just two great mates, and shared many a trip down from Ballarat, and many a laugh, and many a heartache, and celebrated many victories. So yeah, look, it's fantastic to know that he's coming down to share in this special day and put his support behind the cause. And I'm sure he won't mind the Lockett end turning into the Frawley end for a day. And it'd be great to catch up with him.
Now, going back on the years, now I'm assuming the numbers of the lockers were in order, so you probably would have shared a locker alongside him for one season, I believe.
24, 23 we did, yes.
Yep. Is there, knowing what he's like, is there sort of anything you might have found in your locker any days, or he played any sort of hidden anything from you, or he played any pranks on you, being your next door neighbour?
Well, we both played a bit of a practical joke on Brian Wilson, who came down from Melbourne it was a pretty flash car for us in those days. It was a 911 Porsche. It wasn't the greatest Porsche you could have, but it was still a Porsche, and he was pretty sort of happy with himself. And for those who knew Willow, he was extremely confident, and Spud decided to bring some super glue in one day. I don't know why, to super glue up his windscreen wipers. So he in fact got me, said, look, I'll keep a look out. You do the job, you do the task. So I've super glued his windscreen wipers up. Had a bit of a chuckle. We've gone back in the rooms, and we've actually forgot about it for a couple of weeks because Willow had been playing a few practical jokes on all the boys, and he got Spud a couple of times. So we totally forgot about it. About a month later, he's rocked in, and we heard him talking to the boot stutter, saying, "I've just spent $1,400 replacing my windscreen wipers. The motor burnt out, and of course, being a Porsche, every spare part it cost a fortune. Now, $14 back in those days was probably equivalent to about $5,000 today. So I've just said to the big fella, do not say a word. He's never going to work out what it was." So for about 12 years, nothing was said, and Spud retired, wrote a book, and it was one of the stories he put in the book. So, of course, Willow's the first person he rings is me. But no, we've done a bit. I was massively into Musashi back in those days, the old amino acids, and he was putting dead snakes in there, and I was putting mice in his tracky pants and whatnot, and it's all the usual, good, fun, sort of, locker room antics that, it was it's just in one way I love talking about it. In another way, I'm sort of angry. I'm sort of disappointed. I'm sad. It's just real mixed emotions. He just should be here, and it's just so sad that he's not. So,
Loewe, I'm just going to take you back to 1995 and the time of Spud's retirement. Now, you and Robert Harvey presented Spud with a framed picture from his last game, I believe it was. And I know that because my old man kept me home from school that day that you went to pick it up from his shop in the city.
Yes.
And
yes.
What do you say when you're presenting, at that time, the longest tenured captain of the footy club? What do you say to him when you present him something like that on his retirement?
Well, we played the Bulldogs out at the Bulldogs. We had a reasonably good day that day. We got about 6 or 7 goals up. We were trying to orchestrate to get him a goal in his last game. So if you look at the replay, you'll see him running down from fullback on about 3 occasions in the last quarter. Just couldn't quite get it, but it was emotional. It was probably the first time that a player ran through the banner with his child. So he's started a new trend. Chelsea sort of came through the banner with his jumper on, and it was just a lot of emotion, a lot of tears, as you can imagine. Very, very emotional. We'd sort of grown up as really, we had Trevor as our first captain, and both halves and I were extremely close to Trevor, and that was just tragedy, which with what happened to Trev, and then obviously it was a sad day, but at that stage, we were just adamant that we were just going to follow in his footsteps and lead the way he has. So as much as we were really disappointed that we were going to lose him as a captain, we knew that we weren't going to lose him as a mate, and we just wanted to make sure that what he taught us still does, and the team in the right frame. And I think in a couple of years after he retired, we managed to play off in a grand final. Obviously not quite getting there, but there's no doubt that a lot of the work that Danny had done for a long time, really set that group up. And it was disappointing that he couldn't quite last another couple of years and make it in there. But he certainly was just fantastic for a long, long time, and just a great competitor and a super, super captain. As
we let you go, the very final one thing else that you did say at Best and Fairest night was you spoke to the group and said you need to build a legacy for yourself, and follow the examples set by people like Danny. And you said, look, as past players, we've had our chance, and you guys get the chance. Do you feel that they have kicked on a bit? I mean, they've responded pretty well as a group to the last sort of 18 months, and they seem in a pretty good place.
Oh, look, I was privy to be up in one of the sessions they did pre-season up at Ballarat, where I got an opportunity to speak to the group and just told a few stories about Danny the person, and Danny the footballer, and Danny the trainer, and my teammate, the captain. And there's no doubt, looking at the group, that they are a super, super tight group. And I'm just absolutely wrapped for the boys, and I think Rats is doing an awesome job, as all the coaches are. And I just think there's something special brewing, and it's not going to be too far away before we hopefully can taste the ultimate success. So fingers crossed. Who knows? The Bulldogs proved a couple of years ago that younger teams can do it. And in saying that, I think we've probably got one of the older lists going around at the moment, which I find hard to believe, given the fact that we've got so many young players. But I think we've got a super mix, and I reckon we're not too far away, guys. So hopefully the Saints supporters will get something to cheer around.
Oh, Paddy Ryder's about 93, which I think hurts that a little bit. But Stewie, good luck to you and the Hale Every boys as well. Good luck for Saturday for Spud's game, and thank you very much for giving us some time second time around.
No, my pleasure, guys. And I just implore all the Saints supporters out there to dig deep and give to a tremendous cause, and I know it'll touch a lot of people, and really support the charity going forward. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of advertisements as to who people can call and what they need to do over the next sort of coming weeks. So thanks again for your support, guys.
That was Stewart Loewe joining us for the second time, and obviously a very worthy cause. And Spud's Game, Time to Talk. It's a groundbreaking new initiative designed to tackle mental health issues within the community. It's our chance not only to celebrate Spud's legacy as a player and a person, but promote a national conversation that can help lead to early intervention and fight the prevalence, the scourge of mental health issues within the community. If you head along to the St Kilda website, there are plenty of other places to donate, but saints.com.au, there's a banner for Spud's Game and there's a button that says donate now. You can certainly do that. There'll be opportunities to do that on the day for those that are heading along to Marvel Stadium as well. So a very, very worthy cause, and well done to all of those that are putting their names and support behind that. A very important message. And my main takeaway from what Stewart Loewe said was that Spuds often did talk about it, and he sort of spoke to us a lot about it in here. I used to host a show with him called No Man Should Ever Walk Alone, which dealt with physical and cardio health and mental health and those sorts of things. Was that Stewie said then that they knew often that there were things that were going on behind the surface, but they weren't able to necessarily know or to help. And that shows that as much as Spud became aware of that message and started to pioneer that message, that he perhaps didn't always know it and maybe didn't find it out early enough for his own sake and for his own benefit. And unfortunately, that's where it does leave us. But that was my main takeaway from that Spud himself fell victim to the message that he's trying to preach.
Yeah, I think it proves that, it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter if you're, if you're a young kid, doesn't matter if you're an elite athlete and a superstar of your field. I did a little bit with Spud on a Golden Fist campaign with Fox Footy, about a decade ago. And you could tell whenever he came into the office and had a chat that there was stuff. There was stuff on his mind, and he was quite often, pretty open and honest, and you'd ask him how he was, and he'd go, "Oh, having a shitty day."
Yeah.
And he was great like that. And I think if these initiatives can help another young kid come out and be able to say, "I'm struggling," and help them get the assistance and the help that they need, then it's done its job, and Spud would be proud of that.
Yeah, and I often used to, further to that, a similar thing, like you'd be working on him here, it might be a phone call where you'd have him on for a segment, and one day it would be, you'd send him a text and say, "Can you chat?" And he'd be like, "Yep." And then you'd do the chat, and then it would be bang, phone conversation over, and very short, but then 3 days later I'd be at the MCG, and you'd be on your way out of the ground, and he'd walk up behind you and put you in a headlock and be like, "Oh, Parker, how you going?" And like full of beans, and it's things like that where you just sort of, you wonder in your own mind whether you were reading the signs correctly, could you have done more, and those sorts of things. And I think it's little things like that, like if people are allowed to have shitty days, and you've got to encourage them that that's okay. You don't tell them to be quiet. You don't tell them to, just go off and leave you alone and all that sort of stuff. Just see, you find what you can do in those situations. You don't pry and you don't keep poking people, but you want them to feel safe, that they can obviously trust you to talk about those sorts of things.
Yeah, you kind of see it with the way that teams are giving players time off now. We didn't see that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's come along a lot more recently. The teams are realising, hey, if the player's not well, they shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
They need to get away, need to just take the mind off what their usual day-to-day routine is, and just freshen up, have a bit of time off, get back, because that's going to be longer for them and better for them in the long run, better for the team in the long run. Mm-hmm. It's become a bit more commonplace now. They see, okay, a player's he's not going so great, so the club go, look, get away, just go get yourself right.
Exactly, and it's the same as we'll take him. Like if your mate, he doesn't want to come out that day, that's okay. Or if he does, it's not hanging shit on people. It's listening. If your mate's like, yeah, I'm not feeling the best today, you want him to be able to say that to you, and then you want to be able to, offer whatever support he needs. If it's just listening, if it's a beer, if it's a walk, if it's anything.
Yeah, that's it, and it hits different people differently. I remember as a teenager, I've had my battles with the black dog that you guys know. Yeah, and I remember there'd be weekends where, the group of us would go out and I wouldn't want to come and I'd make an excuse, so I'm busy or can't do it. But in reality, lying in bed watching TV and just don't want to do anything. But on the flip side, I remember getting older and kind of understanding a little bit more about the environment and that life and what you need to do. And on the flip side, I remember sitting in the grandstand at the MCG watching a St Kilda Carlton game with you, Parko, and just letting it all out for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Which, if you'd said to me that I would have done a few years earlier, I would have gone, no, that's
right.
That's shit. I wouldn't. There's no chance I'm gonna do that. But I think everybody's reaction and everybody's experience with depression and mental health is different, and it requires a certain level of personal assistance and personal understanding. And again, like I said earlier, if initiatives like this and Spud's game and his legacy are that one other young kid is going to feel comfortable coming out and saying to someone, I need some help, or I'm not doing too good, then it's done its job.
Yeah, and even scenarios like that, you want people to be able to say, I don't have to give the boys an excuse. I don't have to say, mum's crook, or I've got to look after such and such. You should be able to just say, not feeling it today.
That's it.
And be able to get away with that and have people go, okay, no worries, maybe we come to you. Do you want us to come over and have beers at your house instead?
Anything
or
we can do.
something differently or whatever it may be. But people not to feel like, I can't tell them the real reason, so I'll tell them a different one.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
And we all know, and this is not a pushing a men's thing, that the facts are laid bare. The suicide numbers, men compared to women, is wrong. It's astronomical. The whole thing. But you can't have a statistic that's skewed that far that way without it being a really significant problem.
That's right. And historically, it's inherent in culture that over history and over time, men haven't felt able to be able to do that, to be able to say, I'm struggling, to be able to come out to their mates and say, look, I need a hand, or just lend an ear for a little bit. I need to talk. And men in particular find it difficult to talk. And it's something that, it's a lot easier for me to do now than it would have been 10 or 15 years ago, having made the effort and gone through that process. But, it's certainly one of those things that there needs to be more focus on, more education, more understanding that, this is a real issue.
And as we're saying, the centre that's going to be open, that it's a place that's going to be for people to go to. The ones that don't want to say to people, I'm not well, they can go there and work it out. And eventually they might be able to say to their mates, I've been going here. So it's just getting the money that will go to this to help get it open and get it running and that is going to go a long way into the future. And you'll find, it's going to be pretty localised to begin with, but let it expand over time, get more of these places going, and you'll find that it's going to help more people than you'll ever realise. Yeah,
I think we all know what happened to Spud. It shouldn't have happened, but it did, and it's a case now of obviously turning that into something that can benefit a lot of people, which he was already working to do towards the latter stages of his life.
A bit undersized, Josh Battle. Bigger man wins the day, Jack Higgins. To Loewe, these dangerous small forwards. Loewe's bent that around. Miracle goal, Jack Loewe. Something from nothing.
We look ahead to Melbourne, 6-day break coming off a gruelling game in the wet and interstate, obviously versus Melbourne 7 days. That's something to overcome. Max King to return, Zach Jones to return, which will help. Melbourne obviously coming off a 22-point win against Fremantle at the MCG, and an undermanned Fremantle. It wasn't a great game of footy, but we know the D's only missed the finals by percentage, I think, last year, so they're not a bad outfit. It's been a good matchup for us in the past, generally, this one. We did lose to them last year, which was one of the losses that pissed me off the most when they beat us in Alice when we had 48 inside 50s to 30 and just couldn't score. Christian Petrarca tore us apart that day. And hopefully we can contain it. I think we tried to tag him with Seb Ross, if my memory serves me correctly, that night. But hopefully we can work on a few things. Obviously, no Ben Brown or Wiedemann for them, so their forward line's a bit smaller than what they would hope for it to be. But clearly Max Gawn is one of the things we have to overcome. I would imagine that the changes that would be made would be King and Jones, probably for Mackenzie and Mason Wood, who was the sub, is actually credited with a game for the Saints. And then they'd rotate the sub, whether it be Bytel or something like that, Nick. But how do you see it selection-wise?
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. It's a really fascinating game. I think Melbourne are one of those teams. You look at their roster and their squad, and they should be much better than they are. And you watch their game last week, and even at times last year, and sometimes it looks like they just don't want to be there. They've got so much talent on that list, and they should be tearing teams apart. And really, they're not. And even last week, it was a decent win, but they weren't impressive.
No.
And it was hard to watch them play. They didn't play a good brand of football. They're not fun to watch. It didn't look like they were having any fun out there either.
And that was after kicking the first 5 when you think they'd be up and about. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of polar opposites to where we are, because every time we run out onto the field, we look like we're having fun. We move the ball quickly. We're fun to watch. We play really attractive offensive football, and it's the opposite of what seems to be happening at Melbourne at the moment. And I'm not sure what the issue is, but clearly there is plenty of talent that we've got to be concerned about. And regardless of whatever external views anyone has on Melbourne as a footy club or how they're tracking, there's heaps of talent there that you've got to be concerned about.
Yeah, whether they've been told the pike down a little bit after a couple of years ago, run around, ask us what we're going to do in September, and then missed out themselves. It's always been a bit of a, I don't know, they seem a little, I guess, laconic at times. They're kind of a bit like all of a sudden they take off and they're destroying team, and then they slow down and the other team pulls them back. And it's, if you can catch them in that moment where they're a little bit off guard and really punish them, that's where you're going to win a game against them. I don't know whether it's because, they do have quite a young team. They've got a lot of young players in there at the moment. Whether it's that whole, they're not up to that stage yet of get that consistent football going, or just don't have the experience that maybe a lot of people think they have. But it's it's a team that we go, well, look, you're looking at teams we should beat them.
We should beat them.
But there's some players there that if you let them go, they will hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got really got to make sure that we've got to pick out the right players. Don't kick it on Stephen May's head. He's going to take the ball, take the mark all the time.
He was best on Saturday.
You don't let Clayton Oliver just run through the middle by himself and let him do what he wants. And don't sit 2 metres behind Petrarca in the forward line.
Exactly, yeah.
There's a few little things that you go, do those things right, and you push them aside quite easily.
Yeah, that's the thing, is, Gawn could have a field day against us. We've obviously got to get that right. We've got to or just shark him if we can in the middle. Don't let him put it down players' throats, and just get that matchup right if he goes forward. Tom McDonald's their other tall. Bailey Fritsch plays as a medium. They've got Luke Jackson, that second ruckman, who's only early in his career and shouldn't be a huge problem, but he's a talented young player.
Brayshaw.
Obviously Brayshaw and Oliver through the middle of the ground as well, that they can obviously win a fair bit of the pill. But they flogged Collingwood last year. They beat us, but at the same time, Fremantle and Sydney smacked them late in the year and cost them their season. So they can be a strange mob. Like they can play really well. They could come out and beat who's another good side. They could come out and beat the Bulldogs by 75 points or something like that at the MCG, but then the Gold Coast had beaten them by 100 at Metricon, or it's really bizarre. So
we get frustrated, but I can tell you some Melbourne fans get really frustrated with how they turn up sometimes.
It's an important game. It's an important occasion. We've got a few things that are favouring them, obviously the break and things like that, but the venue suits us. We should be pretty hard to stop on a fast track. If we can get enough ball, we should be able to wrong foot their defence a little bit if we don't kick it to May all the time. So we created an opportunity with a good win against the Giants. We need to win a game like this, particularly, as we say, Melbourne just missed the finals. We just made the finals. We always looked like we were going to make it, but the gap between us and them wasn't great.
Yeah.
So to get a win on them here and
get that game up on
get that game up on them would be important just to help consolidate what we're trying to do.
They're definitely one of the ones who trying to push us out. So
especially given how tough the fixture becomes, in the month following, it would be great to get off to that 2-0 start. But you talk about the little advantages, and maybe that little advantage is that emotion that's going to be in the rooms before the game. You think if there's anything that's going to get the boys up, it's going to be this, and what this game stands for, and who it stands for as a club and as a person, and a former captain, how important Spud is and was to our footy club. I think there's going to be a fair bit of emotion. I think they're going to come out firing in that first bounce.
I'd suggest Chip's probably going to be in there to give him a little rundown or something before they go out. And I mean, how much he would be just sitting back going, "I wish he was out there." 'Cause, I mean, the injury happened, you sort of go, "Oh, now we know." As soon as you thought he's going to miss round 2, he was ready to go for it, and it's the one game if he played one game this year, that would have been the one he wanted to play.
Yeah, you got Tony Brown and Aaron Hamill both wore number 2 for us, still involved in the club. You got Jake Carlisle, who's obviously a pretty hard nut, and loves a bit of emotion and passion. So I'm sure there'll be some feeling.
Yeah, and there has to be. I mean, given what he sort of meant to our club, and I think one of Spud's daughters goes out with Angus Brayshaw. I think that's right. For the crossover into Melbourne, I'm pretty sure that's right. And apologies if it isn't, but I think it is. But yeah, you'd think all of the messaging around, the club's been really big. I mean, Stewart Loewe's spoken about it a couple of times where they've gone to Spud's farm in Ballarat and have learnt the legacy of him and what it all means. And one other thing that came out of the press conference is that I get the feeling that Paddy Ryder's not all that far away. Brett Ratton was talking about how he's in regular contact with his teammates still. And he's basically saying to them, look, I need to do this. I'm going to be back. But when I come back, I want to make sure I'm playing my best footy. But reading between the lines, it feels like that's, it's not this week, but it might be next week or the week after. It's not that far away, I don't think. And I think Marshall's pretty close to him. I mean, it's not a great matchup to be losing both of those players in. But if we can just work our way through it and get the big boys back, then we can hit those tough fixtures. When I say tough fixtures, they're all tough, but hit the Richmonds and the West Coast and the Geelongs with a full head of steam, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, it's one of the key positions we basically went ahead with last year from the year before. I mean, 2 years ago, Romer's basically, it was pretty fresh still. He did a great job, but then he's come in and Paddy's come in and he's just lifted into another level again and helped him out. And so just to have those two back in the team, it's going to lift us again. So it's as soon as we get them back, it's going to change our season again, in a completely different way. So
there's a lot of upside.
It's you sort of look, okay, if we bring these two ruckmen back, how are we going to take out a small player to try and have that, or is it going to come down to where we play?
Yeah, because McKernan's the interesting one, because obviously Hunter would go out with all due respect to him, but then it's whether they play McKernan or if that's too many.
As a forward or
yeah,
something.
Exactly. So that's all really, really fascinating to see. And
good problems, though.
Yeah, and Brad Crouch will play the week after. This is his second match of his suspension. And Geary maybe round 5 or 6, and Hanbury not so sure. We know Patton's done for the year with a sickening injury, but
it sounded like
from
all reports that Zach Jones and Crouch were the two best on ground for that Sandy scratch match.
Yeah,
so that's good signs.
So Jones will play this week for sure, and King obviously all good after the mishap, and probably a blessing that it rained in Sydney, which meant we didn't miss the tools as much as we otherwise would. But it is Spud's game. It's great to get Stewart Loewe and Chelsea Frawley on this week. If you are heading along to Marvel, it's going to be terrific to obviously get a good St Kilda crowd there. If not this week, then hopefully over coming weeks and those numbers stay the same and we can get the 75% and possibly more in attendance at games over the course of the year. But thanks for listening if you've stuck with us this far. And we'll be back with another edition next week and hopefully another special guest, hopefully 2 and Zip ahead of the side that you must beat more than any other in the world, and that is Essendon in round 3. But thanks, boys, and good luck for Saturday.
Go Saints.